Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a good night. I am King Pigley. This is Gaming Imperfectly, and welcome to the channel. And if you're new to the channel, I am King Pigley, and I hope you like what you see. I got a crazy story for you today. It's tragic. It's super sad as far as I'm concerned. But also, I think there's some valuable lessons to be learned about what happened to Dustin Self. Dustin Self was born in Piedmont, Oklahoma. He was a pretty normal kid for most parts, but like a lot of kids, he was wild. He was prone to doing some drugs, and he was kind of carefree, like a lot of kids. It's nothing crazy, nothing out there. He did have some sort of mental health issues going on with him, guys, and he was on some forms of medication. However, I'm not sure what those medications are because anything I've read hasn't discussed his medical history. I do know that by the time Dustin was 18 years old, 19 years old, he was really looking for an escape from society. He really became obsessed with the movie and book Into the Wild. I think some of you guys have probably seen this movie or at least read this book in high school. And Dustin really got into the movie Into the Wild, and he liked the idea of leaving everything behind and just going off into the wilderness to live this life. It's a very romantic idea he had of this. This seemed like something that would have been super appealing to him. And I don't think he understood how difficult that lifestyle actually is, And sometimes we're all that way. We're just naive or we don't understand. We're a little ignorant of subject matters. And so we don't actually grasp how difficult sometimes things can be. And even though Into the Wild ended absolutely tragically, I mean, we all know that the main story of Into the Wild died in the wilderness because of exposure and starvation. But nonetheless, Dustin Self really seemed determined to live this kind of lifestyle himself. He even told his parents that this is something that he wanted to do, that he wanted to go out into the wilderness and that he wanted to try to survive for a month living out in the woods of Oregon, nonetheless. Now remember, he's in Oklahoma. His parents thought this was a terrible idea. They were like, Dustin, you have no survival skills. Dustin was not an outdoorsman. A lot of the cases that I cover about people who have gone missing or disappeared or this, that, and the other, they all tend to be outdoorsmen or hunters, and this is not the case. Dustin had zero camping experience and stuff like that. It just wasn't in his forte. And so his parents were like, yeah, Dustin, this is really kind of a bad idea. And he told his parents, he says, I'm going to go to Oregon, and there's this place called Steen Mountain that I want to go stay at. Seems like a reasonable place. I'm going to go live out in the woods. And in 2013, that's exactly what he did. He actually got in his truck and he drove from Oklahoma to Oregon. We know he made it to Oregon because there's a shopkeeper that was actually a storekeeper that called Dustin's parents. Now, I don't know why this guy called Dustin's parents. I'm really unsure about this. Again, the reports are a little hazy on this. But for some reason, this shopkeeper decided that after Dustin bought a few gallons of gasoline and a couple of food items, and asking him for directions to Steen Mountain, that he should call Dustin's parents. I don't know why he did that, but he did. And Dustin's parents like, oh yeah, we know, he's going camping. It's perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about, that kind of thing. Overall, guys, he was ill-prepared, like totally ill-prepared for this trip. And that should really be understood. Guys, don't go out into the wilds of North America. Don't go out into the wilds of Europe. Don't go out into the wilds of anywhere if you're not properly supplied and you don't know what you're doing. Please don't. Because the chances of something horrible happening to you are just increased exponentially. I understand that Into the Wild is a very romantic movie. And it has a lot of romantic notions about living free and living without money and without material things. And that can seem truly appealing. And it is slightly appealing to a lot of people that live off grid and around the world. I homestead, guys. I don't know if you know this about me, but here in the rural areas of Kentucky, the backwoods of Kentucky, King Pigley has his empire. And in this empire, I raise and kill my own chickens, and I garden, and I can, and my wife makes our own bread, and I actually grind flour with a hand grinder out of wheat berries. I live a pretty self-sufficient existence myself. And so I know it's tough, and it does appeal. I like not being connected as well, so much to the system, if you will. But this kid was not prepared for this. He had no experience, and he really had very little supplies to be out into the wilds of Oregon in the springtime, which can still get really cold at night, guys. I mean, it can be beautiful during the day, but at night it can get frigid. Now, a few months later, guys, a rancher was riding on his land, and he discovered Dustin's truck off the side of the road, like really off the side of the road on his property. I do believe the name of the road was Stonehouse Road. Dustin's truck was found just off of Stonehouse Road by the landowner, and he notified the authorities. The police came out and looked at Dustin's truck, but and they contacted his parents, and his parents were still not worried. They told the police officers that Dustin had said he was going to go camping for a month out in the woods there, and that they were sure that he would just come back to his truck when the time called for it. And they asked that the rancher not tow his truck and have it removed from the land so he could have a place to get to and get out of. To my knowledge, I think the rancher agreed to this. But after over a month of being gone, they all knew that Dustin, something was wrong. And so when they checked his truck again and went back to the scene of basically where Dustin had apparently walked off into the woods, they checked his truck. Now, inside the truck were his truck keys, a laptop, some basic, very basic, rudimentary camping supplies, and his GPS. Now, in one of my other videos, actually my Stephen Thomas video, guys, if you haven't watched my Stephen Thomas video, What Happened to Stephen Thomas, check it out. But at the end of that video, I implore you guys, please, if you're going out into the wilderness, spend $100, guys. Get a good GPS locator, take it with you, because it can save your life. Now, this kid had a GPS, he left it in the truck. We don't know why, all right? Nonetheless, the search was kicked off for Dustin, and really no sign of him could be found. Nobody really knew what was going on, and the parents were now worried because they understood Dustin wasn't going to go hunt for food. He didn't have enough food to survive out over a month in the wilds of Oregon. And most importantly, Dustin was a vegetarian. So even if he would have had a firearm and could have hunted for food, he wouldn't have, because he didn't eat meat. But it was at this point in time where Dustin's girlfriend pops up into the story. This is where it kind of gets really weird, guys. It gets really strange here. Dustin's girlfriend pops up out of the woodworks and says, "Oh, yeah, Dustin texted me." And in these texts, he said he was stuck on the side of a mountain somewhere and that he didn't know, saying that he was lost and that there were things chasing him on the mountain and that he was seeing plants, like uprooted plants, walking around. Really weird. The text messaging really didn't go beyond that. And the ex-girlfriend, even though she was an ex-girlfriend of Dustin's, they were still close. They talked almost every day. It wasn't a bad breakup or anything like that. And they were still friends. So when he's texting her stuff like this, she was like, yeah, this is super weird. But the conversation just kind of ended. Like, he really didn't go into great detail, and all of a sudden he stopped texting her. So she thought, well, he's joking, or he's kidding, or he's not serious, and just thought it was weird text from, Dustin. Just kind of left it up to that. But then one day, Dustin's ex-girlfriend was at the airport with her mother, and they were about to go on a vacation. And her phone rings, and she looks down, and it's Dustin's name on her caller ID. She answers the phone, and there's Dustin, and Dustin starts talking about how he's driving around a town, but he can't get out of this town. Somehow he is stuck in this town. He's trapped. He even used the word trapped. He said, I'm trapped in this town, and I can't get out of it. I don't know how. And every gas station I stop in for help, there are devil worshipers in this town, and they work at all the businesses. Nobody will help me. And everywhere he goes, he sees dead animals and dead plants laying all over the place. He's trying to bring them back to life, but he's scared, and he needs help. Now, this is what he told her. And she said he sounded terrified. But all of a sudden, as soon as he said that he's trying to bring all these dead animals and plants back to life and run from the devil worshipers, his phone goes dead. They lose signal. I don't know. We don't know, but the call ended. And that was the last time anybody ever heard of Dustin Self. He disappeared at that point in time. His ex-girlfriend, actually said that not only was Dustin into the wild, but he also really was into a book called Human Race, Get Off Your Knees. Now, this book is a book of conspiracy theories and just kind of really out there kind of stuff, guys. Watching this channel, I am perfect, guys. It is okay to believe things that other people don't. If you believe in Bigfoot, that's perfectly okay. And if you believe in ghosts or aliens or whatever, I don't care. I think that it actually is a flavor of life that we all believe different things, and I think that we should all work on becoming okay with allowing other people to believe things that we don't necessarily prescribe to, and just minding our own freaking business. But nonetheless, Dustin really enjoyed the book, Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, like I said, which was a book of conspiracy theories, really. She also said that Dustin was prone to abusing his prescription medication at times, and that he was also prone to fits of paranoia. This doesn't bode well for the conversations that he was having with her on the phone. She also let the police know that Dustin didn't just go up to Steen Mountain to camp for a month, that he went up there looking for these two churches that apparently in this book of Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, these two churches reside in the wilderness of this, on Mount Steen somewhere, and that the congregation or the members of these churches actually use hallucinogenic mushrooms, psilocybin, in their rituals, in their worship services. And he wanted to try that. So he wanted to eat some mushrooms and go live up on the mountain with these churchgoers for a month to experience something. I don't know what, but experience something. Police actually did look into the girlfriend's claims that Dustin had texted her and called her, and she wasn't lying. According to Dustin's cell phone records, he had actually absolutely texted his ex-girlfriend those things and called her exactly on the day that she said. But they also were able to trace the location of Dustin's cell phone, and so as he's telling his girlfriend that he's riding around his truck in a town filled with devil worshippers that he couldn't escape. I mean, Silent Hill much, guys? Holy crap. But the police found out by his phone records that he was nowhere near a town when he made that call to his girlfriend. In fact, he was out in the wilderness when he made that phone call. Eventually, though, the police called off the search. They couldn't find Dustin Self. They looked high. They had helicopters and dogs and everything else. There was no sign of Dustin anywhere, and so they gave up the search. 6 months later, a hunter was actually walking around the woods near Burns, Oregon, and he was hunting deer. And he came across Dustin's remains. At first, he didn't know. Of course, nobody knew it was Dustin, but he found a body. The police came in, and they looked at what had happened. And there, in a patch of aspen trees, in a grove of aspen trees, Dustin had removed all of his clothes until he was completely naked, and then curled up in fetal position underneath the aspen trees and died. And that was it. There was no sign of struggle. There was no sign of death. He certainly, by the coroner's report, died from exposure. But he, all in all, wasn't very far from his truck. In fact, he was probably about 1,000 yards away from where his truck was found. So it's just super sad, guys. But the question then remains, what happened to Dustin Self? I mean, did something paranormal happen to Dustin? Or did Dustin Self and just young man naivety go out to the wildernesses of Oregon ill-prepared and die of exposure? Or even crazier, did Dustin go out into the woods and then buy hallucinogens from somebody and then start tripping balls and had a bad trip and then suddenly just curled up and decided that it was okay to die underneath a tree? I don't necessarily buy that either, guys. And if any of you have had experiences with hallucinogens and whatnot, bad trips can be bad trips, but it does wear off after a time. It doesn't last for years and days and months and so on and so forth. Mushrooms are actually, by scientific determination, if you ate a half ounce of mushrooms, within 24 hours, it's going to be out of your system, and you are no longer going to be hallucinating, even if they were super powerful. So for him to remove all of his clothing and then just lay down and die of exposure is really strange. That super strange, in fact. I mean, if anything, you would think that he would just wake up the next morning, cold, butt naked, and ashamed that he had run around the woods all night texting people about uprooted plants and devil worshippers, and had to take the walk of shame and apologize to his friends and his family, and call his girlfriend talking about crazy things. However, maybe that's not the case. Maybe Dustin legitimately got caught in some sort of Silent Hill paranormal event. Who knows? I certainly don't, but I'd love to hear what you think happened to Dustin Self. Please leave me something in the comment section below. Guys, that's it for King Pigley today. If you like this story, well, it's hard to like stories like this. It's just so tragic that this young man lost his life, and my heart goes out to his family. If you enjoyed the storytelling, though, guys, please click that like button. It helps me out. And not only does it let me know you're enjoying the content, but it lets YouTube know that you're enjoying the content, and you can help the channel grow by doing that. Speaking of which, if you have been here this long and you're new to the channel, I surely hope you'll smash in that jolly candy-like red button and subscribe. And also, guys, hit the bell. Whether you're an old subscriber or a new subscriber, don't miss out on the next dark, spooky, true crime, true story, mystery tale I bring here to Gaming Imperfectly. But anyway, guys, that's it for King Pigley today. I'm out of here, and I will see you guys in the next video.